Um, give you some advice on when you are encountering service members, perhaps for the first time, if you're going to a military career fair. So like you're on a base and it's a military career fair, or maybe it's one of those off-base ones like, Recruit Military does, or any number of organizations do these career fairs. We've got some tips for you. One thing that you should never ask and one thing that you should never tell. So the never ask pieces of this, never, ever, ever, especially if you're talking to a transitioning military person, the question should never be, so what do you want to do? And that sounds like, oh my God, I ask everybody that question. What do you mean? Don't they know what they want to do? No, that's the problem. When someone joins the military, on average, our enlisted members tend to join right out of high school, and our officers tend to join right out of college. So for many of them, this really truly is their first job. Other than maybe they, worked at Taco Bell or something, or folded sweaters at the Gap. But I mean, this is like their first real full-time job. And how they got this job in the military. Most people don't walk in the door of a military recruiter saying, I want to go, build roads for a living. I want to be a construction engineer. I want to be a telecommunications professional. They have no idea what they want to do when they walk in the door. Some people do, but the vast majority of them don't. But they know that they want to serve. There's, any variety of reasons why they're joining the military. They need money for college. They need, they need a job. They just need to get out of their small town and go see the world. Or, they have no interest in going to college, no money to go to college. So this is a way for them to be able to go to college later with the GI Bill. There's a lot of reasons why people join. But when they walk in and talk to that recruiter, they don't know, honestly, what they want to do, the vast majority of them. So they take something that's called the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And it's an online test. It's like 220 questions. You got like 2 hours to answer all these questions. And basically it's just trying to ascertain what you have the aptitude to learn. So in the end, it's evaluating, do you have mechanical aptitude? Do you have reading comprehension? Do you have, general scientific skills? Do you have all, mathematical skills, reading skills, all these kind of things. It's assessing like 9 different areas. And then you get a score at the end of this. And you have to have a minimum score in all of those 9 areas to even be considered for the military. So believe it or not, a lot of people don't pass, because they're not hitting the minimums on this. But then once you attain the minimum, then it's like, okay, well, how high of a score do you have in these 9 areas? And depending on what you scored high in, that determines what jobs are available to you in the military that the military is willing to train you in. So, for example, you're never going to be a mechanic in the military if you don't score high on mechanical aptitude. I mean, the military will teach people anything, but they're not going to start with someone who does not have the capability to learn it. So, whether you've got STEM experience or reading experience or whatever, legal, you can understand complex legal documents, things like that, then you might find yourself becoming kind of that legal, paralegal type person in the military. So that's how folks get their job. So the military decided you would be excellent as a telecommunications engineer for our companies. So you're going to learn satellites, radios, telephones, because you've got good general scientific skills and electronics experience. And you probably didn't even know that 17-year-old, 18-year-old that you had these types of aptitudes. But the military is going to train you in how to do that, and then we're going to put you in jobs. We're going to assign you into positions. I mentioned yesterday we don't use resumes. We don't apply for jobs in the military. We are assigned into whatever the next job is going to be. So we assign you into jobs, you take that job, you do that job, and then assuming you want to stay in, because for most people that's kind of the end of their 4-year commitment or 3-year, whatever they signed up for, the vast majority of people won't go much past that. Maybe a couple more years, and then they'll get out. Only about 20% of the people who start their military career stay in for 20 years and make a full-fledged career out of it to where they're retiring from the military. And I say retiring because it is a military retirement, but they're 37, they're 42 when they're retiring. They have a whole nother lifetime to make another career somewhere. So the military is going to teach them how to be that telecommunications engineer, how to do satellites, radios, and telephones. And then, if they want to stay in and get to that next level of their career, there's a very defined career path that they're going to go through. So it's practically, written in stone. It's like, okay, you're going to do this job, then you're going to go to this school, then you're going to go to that assignment, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to have that type of job, and you're going to go to this school, and you're going to do, it literally is like that. And so, again, if you're just planning on staying in, then you follow that basic career path. And the vast majority of people will do that. And there's a career path for officers, there's a career path for enlisted members, and I'll talk about the difference between the two here in a minute. But in general, that's what everybody does. So then they come out of the military, or they're getting ready to transition out, and they're going to these career fairs, in some cases 90 days before they're leaving the service, but in more cases than not, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. I had one guy that was 3 years out starting to look at what his options were, what kind of companies might be interested in hiring someone with his background. So I applaud his initiative. And then you ask them, so what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't even know what I could do. All I know is what I've done. And for some of them, they don't necessarily want to do the thing that the military trained them to do. Either because it just doesn't feel fulfilling anymore, or because they have a limited sense of what that looks like in a civilian capacity. And so I always ask folks, rather than saying, what do you want to do? I ask them to tell me what they have done. So what have you been doing for the military for the last 4 years or 14 years or 24 years? Kind of give me a sense of what your background is and what you've done. And, listening for certain words. And then it's like, okay, do you still want to do that kind of work? And yes or no. Why don't you want to do that anymore? Because again, maybe they just have a limited understanding of how those skills could apply, in which case this is an opportunity for you to educate them. Or just might be, I can't stand it, I need to go do something else, but I don't know what else is. I just know I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the mechanic anymore. I don't want to fix things, under a heavy, hot truck, in the desert, for the rest of my life. It's like, okay, well, good news is you don't have to work in a heavy, hot desert. But the fact that you have mechanical aptitude, do we want to continue to capitalize on that? And in which case, here's how that gets used in my company. Here's how we use folks that have mechanical aptitude. And then here's, the kind of environment that they work in, and here's the types of jobs that they have. So do you see how I'm having a conversation with someone right now? And again, that's a very abbreviated conversation. This could be a 20-minute conversation when you're at a career fair. So that should maybe give you a clue that when you go to these career fairs, number one, you have to be willing to have a conversation with service members. You're going to learn far more about them by having a conversation with them than you ever are going to learn from them by, just let me see your resume. The resumes are terrible. Don't throw the resume in the trash while they're standing there, but don't expect the resume to tell you what you want it to tell you. It's just assume that it's not going to. So you need to ask a lot of questions. And so I'm going to help you learn, some resources here to learn how to translate, and then that's going to help you formulate some of the questions that you're going to want to have. Number two, what it should be giving you a clue as is like, you can't be the only person behind the desk when you're doing these recruiting events. You have to bring some people with you. And ideally, if you're still kind of trying to get your arms wrapped around this, bring some service member employees with you. So if you're going to a Navy base, do you already have some employees who are prior service Navy? Bring some of them along. It's not their job to be the recruiter. Maybe they work in the plants, or they work in the store, or they work wherever, but they understand Navy, right? They know the words. They understand the language. They can help translate. And, even better if they're working in some of those jobs that you're trying to fill, then that person can really do a much longer conversation with the service member. And they can also do the, hey, day in the life. Here's what I do. I was that tank mechanic before at Fort Hood, and now I do, this kind of facilities maintenance work at this, warehouse. And, it's a great environment. It's, believe it or not, it's air conditioned in this warehouse. It's not like sitting out in the desert working on a tank. So they can really kind of give them the more detail that they're looking for. So that's the first question, is never ask them, so what do you want to do? Because it's like, that's a really frustrating question for a lot of them. So hopefully you understand why it's a frustrating question. And